a direction which is God-centered. It's theocentric by nature. This is the direction of the human life, should be theocentric. It should not be egocentric. It should be theocentric. It should be based on having God as one's direction in life. And what this does is that it enables human beings to transcend the mundane, to literally rise above the worldly level and enter into the realm of both pure worship and pure service. Because ultimately worship is service. And this is why, related to the Hajj, and this is one of the beautiful aspects of this teaching, is that you will not find any act of worship that is not directly related to some social element. So in the Quran it says, in Surah Al-Hajj, which is the Surah of the pilgrimage, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ, and proclaim to humankind that the pilgrimage, the Hajj. And then it says, يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ, they will come to you on foot and with every lean animal. They will come to you from every deep and distant wide mountain highways to perform the Hajj. And then it says, لِيَشْهَدُوا مَنَافِعَ لَهُمْ, in order to witness things that are beneficial for them. Now the traditional interpretation of this verse is that there's worldly gain in the Hajj. In other words, that people can go for tijara, they can go and literally buy and sell, and many people traditionally would take wares to the Hajj and they would carry them with them on their animal and they would sell them when they got to Hajj. So there's an idea of worldly gain as well, and this is the Islamic ideal of balancing between the worldly aspects of the human needs and the otherworldly aspects. They're never separate, and so you will see always in the Islamic teaching that there's a balance between our worldly needs and our otherworldly needs, that the human being is both body and soul, and in a sense they're inseparable. And this is why there's no separation in Islam between the worldly important matters and the otherworldly matters of importance. So it says that they may witness things that are benefits of them, which has to do with reward of the Hajj, of the Akhirah, but also of worldly benefits. And then وَيَذْكُرُ اسْمَ اللَّهِ فِي أَيَّامٍ مَعْلُومَاتٍ, and to remember the name of Allah. And this is one of the important things also. يَذْكُرُ اسْمَ اللَّهِ, which is the name of Allah, which is only symbolic of the reality of Allah, which is unknowable to the human being. And so this is again emphasizing the pure transcendent element or aspect of the human being's understanding of God, that which is beyond conceptualization. في أيام معلومات, in these known days, على ما رزقهم من بهيمة الأنعام, and to mention these names on these days over the beasts that Allah has provided for them. And this is again the worldly, the human being bringing the worldly to the place of the otherworldly and symbolically sacrificing the worldly for the otherworldly. And so human beings are encouraged on the Hajj to literally sacrifice an animal. And this sacrifice is again a sacrifice that transcends superstition. It is not about any need of God to propitiate the gods or something like this. No. It is a sacrifice that is based on the recognition of the importance of sacrificing the worldly for the otherworldly. That it is necessary. And doing that, there is benefit for human beings. And this is why immediately after that it says, فَكُلُوا مِنْهَا وَأَطْعِمُوا الْبَائِسَ الْفَقِيرَ. Eat from it yourselves. In other words, in your own sacrifice is benefit for you, and feed the less fortunate. So immediately there's a tie again to the importance of social responsibility. That the Hajj itself says that there is a benefit for you, but don't forget those less fortunate than you. And part of the symbolism of going on Hajj is literally seeing humanity in its stripped away nature. When you go on Hajj, what you literally see is humanity with all of their faults exposed before you. And you can choose to look and contemplate on those faults, or you can choose to recognize that you, like them, are in the midst of this human creature so filled with frailty and human naqs, deficiency. That this is a recognition of the deep humanity that has to arise in the human being in order for us to live as human communities together. And so Hajj is literally a recognition of this bonding of human beings together. And this is why for 1400 years, the Prophet ﷺ re-established this ancient rite, which is, we believe, Abrahamic, going back to the father of the monotheistic traditions, Abraham alayhi salam, that he established the rites of the Hajj, and the Prophet ﷺ purified them and reformulated them for the last stage of human life on earth. And so the person who goes on the Hajj is literally moving to the house of God from the dunya, from this realm of the mundane to the realm of the super-mundane, of that which literally goes beyond the world, and enters into an otherworldly place. Mecca is quite literally otherworldly, and anybody who's ever entered into the haram knows exactly what I'm talking about. When you enter into the haram, you enter into a realm that is no longer part of the world. It's literally quite outside of the world. And I can guarantee you have to experience this. And those of you that have been blessed with this experience really understand exactly what I'm talking about. But this is like, it's what Imam al-Ghazali would call a dhawqi knowledge, a knowledge of taste. It's not a knowledge that can be articulated like the taste of honey or the sweetness of intimacy between a man and a woman. These things cannot be articulated on the tongue. They have to be experienced by the individual. And this is part of the power of the Kaaba itself, is entering into the jadab, or the magnetic nature of the Kaaba, which Ibrahim alayhi salam said he asked God to make the hearts of some of humanity, minan nasi, afidatan minan nasi, some of humanity to incline toward this house, that their hearts literally incline towards it. And so each year, all over the world, people prepare to make this journey to Mecca, to the house of God. And there are people from every color, from every tongue, from the male and the female, from literally every human inhabited place on the earth. People set out. Min kulli fajin amiq. You see in the house, you see people from White Russia, you see people from the Caucasus Mountains, you see people from China, you see people from Indonesia, from Philippines, from Japan, you see people from the United States, you see people from Canada, from South America, you see people from every continent and every country in the world, represented symbolically as one humanity. And this is literally the realm that transcends nationalism. It is to see the vision of human beings like the one who sees the earth from the moon. You see, once you've seen the earth from the moon, the boundaries that men divide their worlds by suddenly dissipate and no longer have any importance or meaning. And this is part of the experience of literally going to Hajj, is recognizing that human boundaries themselves are an illusion that we set up, that God has not placed those boundaries on us. We have placed those boundaries on ourselves. That God has made us from one self, and from that self made its opposite, and from the opposites made all of humankind. And this is the recognition that takes place in the house of Allah. And so we go literally into Mecca into a state of ihram. And the state of ihram is to enter into a state of sanctity. It comes from the word haram or haram, which means sanctity, to be in an inviolable state. And the human being enters into his birthright, which is inviolability, that the nafs itself is inviolable. And yet outside of Mecca, the nature of human beings is that they violate the dignity and the sanctity of the self. In Mecca, this is absolutely prohibited. And this is why it says in the Quran that God has made it a place of amna, which means security. Sawa'an fi al-akif wal-bad. Everyone is equal in this place. The one coming from the far place and the one who lives there himself. And so even the Meccan is the same as the one who's distant. In other words, the one who is native to that city has no more right to that city than the one coming from the most distant place. And this is literally to break down the diseases of provincialism, of tribalism, of nationalism. That we have to transcend these things that are divisive, these things that literally create this antagonism between human beings. And we enter into a realm that is literally a recognition of our common bond as human beings, of our common humanity. And so we enter into this place saying, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. And this means, at your service, I'm answering the call. I am answering the call. That this is a call. وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ لِمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. That God has a right upon humankind that they make a pilgrimage to His house. And this is an invitation. It's literally a da'wah. It's a da'wah, which means an invitation. It is God's invitation to His house, to all of humankind. And it's an open invitation to anyone who wants to enter into that house. This is an open invitation from the Creator of the heavens and the earth to human society. Enter into my house. Udkhuluha bisalam aminin. Enter in peace, in a state of tranquility and security. And if we choose to accept that call, then we enter into what's called a state of Islam or submission to God, which should not be in any way, for those of you who are not Muslim, should not be in any way associated with the state religions of the so-called Muslim world. When I say Islam, I'm not talking in any way about the religion of the Constitution of Egypt, or the religion of the Constitution of Saudi Arabia, or the religion of the Constitution of Indonesia, or wherever. That is not the Islam I'm talking about. That's another Islam. Just unfortunately has the same name, and people get them confused. Right? So, and unfortunately there's a lot of people that call themselves Muslims also that have the same name as these other people, and people get them confused as well. So this is the unfortunate nature of the equivocality of language.